Hey everybody, Big Chonas here. Hope everybody is safe. It's Monday, April 27th, 2020. Just want to do a quick video of some of my thoughts about what I'm seeing in Bitcoin and the overall crypto experience. Please do me a favor and click that thumbs up button. Remember to follow and subscribe my channel. You guys can always find me on Twitter at Big Chonas. Let's get into it. So, listen, low time frame, 15-minute here. When Bitcoin did this a couple of days ago on April 23rd, when it basically had this dip and rip, and we haven't really seen the dip and rips, sorry, I should say, we've been seeing those dip and rips in this pattern throughout, and that's bullish. That's powers that be, if you will, trying to get you out of your longs and then ripping the price with pretty solid volume. You know, stop out the longs, entice the shorts, and then bust both of them on equal sides. Not equal sides here. We're still obviously in a bullish pattern. And the reason I wanted to focus on this little area here was because it gives you the perspective that this hasn't had that major rejection yet. We have had several upper wicks, one here, a couple here, a couple here. But we're still putting in these higher highs in this trend, and the breakdowns, whatever they may be, are just $100 here or there that are continuing to get bought up. So we are ranging in this area in a higher high, situation there. Let me go to the other Coinbase chart. Oh, that's Phoenix. There we go. So let's just talk about the daily and get that over with. Ever since our EMA 12 and EMA 26 crossed bullishly, and you can see that here, we had our bullish cross, we had this bearishness, which brought our EMA 12 back, and talk about closing within the 26 there, and it held. And then the next retest, we had that hold with the spread being much larger. And then there's our fan out. This is classic bullish moving average, where you have such a trough and where the EMA 12 gets significantly below, or really significantly below, showing what kind of price action we had there. And when we do get these, okay, we tend to get that bullish cross. Now, we can see that bullish cross doesn't mean, Bitcoin all-time highs, here we come. We have the bullish cross over here, spraying out only to put in a lower low, or at least, break down that bullish pattern, This one here is the only one that we can say really did something. Oh, actually, if you notice what it did is it barely had that breakthrough, and then came back down there because the pullback off of this move here was actually here, and this was more or less the confirmation of this bottom. This was a V bottoming we had currently, and because of that, we were able to get that distance, and then on the flip side, the bullish fan out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 green days. We're working on here. We have expanded above EMA 12 at $7,300. The 12 and 26 now, I believe, will act as that meaningful support if and probably when tested once again. Volume is being consistent. I hear a lot of people talking about divergence in volume, where we have a rising price and we have a falling volume, but we don't really have a falling volume. We have a compared to this area, sure. But if you take a look at this volume profile, and then take a look about this volume profile back, the past several months before the big drop, it's actually pretty good. And it's, at least you could argue, is consistent, if not above average, for what we had been seeing there. The reason we see this kind of volume here is this is capitulation volume. Doesn't necessarily mean the bottom is in, but that this move specifically was capitulation volume um, on the sell side and on the buy side. Um, so I don't think about this lower than this being anything more meaningful in the price action as a whole there. Talking money flows above our zero line. I always say that's very good. On balance volume. Look at that on balance volume there. I mean, my God, we are approaching the levels that mimicked Bitcoin, 12K, 13K on this daily OBV volume profile. And if this data is correct, that's an incredibly bullish signal right there. I mean, it's an incredibly bullish sign. We had our consolidation here, and then that advance, that recent most wick up there, really pushed this guy pretty strong there. Now you can see we have not that much farther actually to go. Look at the differential there between 14K OBV and 20K OBV. Doesn't seem like it's very far there, but this is meaningful. This is a very meaningful move here, and this is bullish. This is I cannot argue with that. I cannot argue with an RSI that's above 60 now. It's strong. Relative strength is relatively strong. Now we do tend to get these zigzag moves. Okay, long move here, come back, long move here. So we're in the, I could argue, the tail end of this move, but that doesn't mean that the RSI can't go above 80 here. It hasn't been above 80 since July. I do set my RSI at 80-20 versus 70-30, and I do set my stochastics at 90-10 instead of 80-20. It makes, for me, my signals more meaningful. This is meaningful here. As I was saying, we're getting on the top end of this situation here. Both of our indicators here, our K and our D, are pretty much topped off. Now, it doesn't mean that it's a rejection yet, it doesn't mean that we have to immediately reverse downward. We can still pancake on the upside. We've done that before. We've pancaked on the downside. But this, again, we're running out of room here. Now, we can definitely consolidate and do a double dip. Okay, we've seen that also many times before. That can still maintain extreme bullish price action and prices while being in this upper area, I should say, of our stochastic here. So strong RSI, but we are due for something here unless we're going to just keep running like we did back over here. We also are putting in from this area of resistance, kind of held it as support. Now we're just a little bit back under it. So there's a little bit more running room into more of a historic area of resistance between 68 and up to almost 70, really, at least on the RSI. And our MACD, they're looking pretty good. Now, I was looking at this yesterday. I was thinking about when did we do a move like this before? And it's very reminiscent of this corrective pattern here. Again, that capitulation move, we remember that back in 2018 in February where Bitcoin hit 5,800 before bouncing almost 100%. So here we are. We have bounced basically 100%, a little under, right? And when we got above here, had a nice bullish histogram. You know, our histogram really isn't that bullish yet, but it's in the green. And then we just rolled over. We eventually just rolled over. So we're right there again. You know, we're kind of right there. Oops. Oh, yeah, this one. In terms of a very similar response to a capitulation move like we had back in the last February there. We need a more meaningful rejection. So where could that be? If we're going to basically stop this trend, if the bulls are going to either show exhaustion or the market's not ready to buy at higher price levels. Start with this. I mean, whew, look how tight that is. MA 200, MA 100. you would think that both would act as stiff resistance. Here's our 50 down here. Remember, we hit this originally and did find it as actually very strong resistance when touched. Originally, only able to get above it and then back test it, find it as support, little morning star here, and then advance. So we have support with a lower low of support. Remember, MMA 50, it couldn't break it at 74, but it broke it at 68. Now it's above it. We have the strong resistance here. We also have, kind of get rid of the volume for a second. There we go. We also have in this area, well, I guess I could go here. Our golden pocket retracement, which just is literally right at the MA 100 and 200. So we have a confluence of MA resistance, of Fibonacci retracement resistance. And that's going to be a tough nut to crack, especially after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days of continuous green candles here. You have to ask yourself, is Bitcoin ready to test this even or to break it even on the first go? If that first go is sooner than later. Do we need a little more consolidation in this area? How strong really is this area of support? If we take the horizontals from our more meaningful rejection, this is a rejection here at $74.80, okay, $7,500. We closed right at it, closed above it, back tested it here on yesterday's price action. So major resistance has become major support right there. So that makes this area so much more meaningful, and it gives Bitcoin running room, if it has to the downside, if it needs to test this again before it tries to go back up. It also means that a close below it, okay, would be very bad, because I now consider $7,500 as a meaningful support. We resisted it, we got above it, we had a couple chances to break through it, and then we did an intraday. Every time we did an intraday, it got bought up. 3-day just started, but again, that's it's hard to argue with this 3-day candle that just closed out yesterday. This is the first day of this new one here. That's a pretty good looking candle. It really is. I did want to bring up some Bollinger Bands because I like the Bollinger Bands. And we've been doing a couple things here. We've been riding our upper BB. Okay, we've been spreading our BBs a little bit here. They didn't get that tight. They actually were a little wider than this area here, and definitely a lot wider than our bottoming over here back in February of 2019. Middle Bollinger support at $7,100 and rising. And the lower BB is only dropping because of the bullish volatility over the past several days. This will eventually, if we at least hold above that $7,500 area, this will eventually turn up and join its middle and upper, all heading in the same direction, which is a bullish sign as well. So that would take a couple days, though, to see how that goes. So we have a strong LBV, we have a strong RSI, we have a toppy yet. Doesn't necessarily mean it needs to get rejected here. It can definitely swim around here for some time. But not that long, though. We don't really see the stochastic RSI topped off like a pancake, okay, for very long. We have a couple little dips here. Here's an example where it was there for, it's like four or 5 days or so. So something's going to happen this week. We're kind of either test that area of resistance, the MA200, MA100 golden pocket, and reject it, probably pretty hard. Kind of blast through it, maybe back test it as support, which would be incredibly bullish. A close outside of the upper Bollinger would be interesting as well. Now, the weekly shows a little different of a thing here. Very wide Bollingers, middle Bollinger resistance. Okay, this is important because this can set the tone for a narrative. Our major resistance right now is $10,000. Right now, hitting the MA20, which is the middle Bollinger. People like to use the MA21 as well. They're basically in the same area. This can set the stage for a meaningful rejection or a close above can target the upper Bollinger. The thing that I would want to see is a close above. Notice how we did something like that interweek on this candle. Okay, support tested, back to green, and then at some point in the week, this candle here fell through and closed below. So that's why the confirmation close above the middle Bollinger and not just the intra-week candle above it is so important. Is the stock market dictating what's going to happen with Bitcoin? Is one leading the other? Well, if you look at this red line here, this represents the S&P. Let's make it blue so you can see it a little better. Go. And you can see that it was rising while Bitcoin was more or less farting around from 10K to 7K, 10K to 7K. Okay. Even though the range was very big, Bitcoin still was able to hit 10K in October and then again in February, while the S&P continued to rise. When the S&P fell, Bitcoin fell. When the S&P V-bottomed so far, Bitcoin V-bottomed as well. The pullback week, and the run higher. Now the S&P is hitting this resistance line. Okay, still putting in the a high, a lower high, a lower high, a lower low, a lower low, a higher low, but still a lower high from this stop area here before that lower low. So the correlation is still there, and the S&P, I still believe, will lead the way, where if it does correct from this move, if this does end up being just some sort of a massive, rising wedge in the S&P or some sort of a bear flag channel, right, that Bitcoin could be doing the same thing as well. So the S&P, how it closes out this week will be an interesting narrative. Last thing I want to talk about is a block. Bitcoin halving is in 14 days, according to bitcoinblockhalf.com. May 12th, about. Looks like a little before noon on May 12th. And that's pretty cool. It's been waiting for this thing, talking about this thing for quite a while. If you guys don't know, Bitcoin inflation rate will basically drop in half to about 2%. We can see that Bitcoin started with a low monetary base and a very high inflation rate. And over the years, every halving, that's been cut in half and cut in half. And we're basically right here at around 18 million Bitcoin mined, and an inflation rate that's going to go from about 4% to about 2%. This is important because over the long term, there'll be less Bitcoin coming on the market. There'll be that response to that less downward pressure. And plus, having an inflation rate on any asset that's around 2%, which is what the dollar is supposed to be pegged at, sort of, is in itself an inherently bullish feature. Previous halvings have had a combination of dips before, rips before, but as we can see, they've all, or as we can say over the past halvings, they've all created a higher high Bitcoin there on after. Sometimes it takes a few weeks, sometimes it takes a few months. Um, but that's also saying Bitcoin has been going up over the past 10 years, which is also true. So we have history of bullish after halvenings, but we also have a history of bullish Bitcoin as well. So we are about to test that theory once again. And it's a very important news-driven event, and news events tend to move crypto historically. I think there's a very good possibility that a narrative of the halvening and just people talking about it itself will create somewhat of a continuation effect of Bitcoin bullishness until proven otherwise. And proven otherwise will be a meaningful resistance. And until the S&P, I believe, meaningfully corrects in some capacity, it's hard to see how Bitcoin corrects before it in a meaningful way. So those are my thoughts. Just wanted to share 20 minutes of time with you. Hopefully we can talk again soon. Until next time, Big Jonas here. Stay safe out there. Please hit a thumbs up if you enjoy this content. And talk to you soon. Peace.